What is going on at Sony, specifically with regards to the PlayStation 5? In the space of 1 month, we have had the absolute disaster that was Concord, which has probably set new records for the quickest live service game flop. Then there was some positive news and good press with the launch of the critically acclaimed Astro Bot. Then Sony went and threw away all of that goodwill and released a bizarre 9-minute presentation detailing the PS5 Pro and its absolutely ridiculous price. In conjunction with all of this, Sony's recently increased the price of the PlayStation 5 and accessories in Japan for the 3rd time since it was launched in November 2020. So as of September the 2nd, the PS5 will now cost 79,980 yen, which equates to $552 and about £418. And then moving on to the PS5 digital, it will now cost 72,980 yen, which equates to about $504 or £381. Furthermore, all DualSense wireless controllers and their colour variations will now cost 11,480 yen or $79 or £60. And then you have the flop, that is the PlayStation VR 2. That will now cost 89,980 yen or $621 or £470. And then you add to this the PlayStation 5 Pro, which will cost a whopping 119,980 yen. And it begs the question, has Sony priced the PlayStation 5 out of the Japanese market? Now, before we dive into all this, please smash that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. So to start, let's look at the recent Famitsu sales in Japan for the period covering September the 2nd to September the 8th of 2024. Now, this is important because the most recent price increase for the PS5 and the accessories went into effect in Japan on the 2nd of September. And as you can see, the PS5 numbers have completely collapsed, selling a paltry 11,800 units. That's the PS5 and the PS5 digital combined. So to put that into perspective, the Nintendo Switch Lite outsold the entire PS5 family during the exact same period, selling 15,271 units. It would seem the price increases have had a pretty dramatic effect on the sales of the PS5 in Japan, with Japanese gamers voting in droves with their wallets. And it's not just on the hardware, the software side is even worse, with the only PlayStation game in the top 10 being a brand new release of the critically acclaimed Astro Bot, which debuted at number 2 in the charts. Now that's pretty good, you'd think, for a new release. That is until you actually drill down and look at the sales numbers, with Astro Bot selling a barely registering 12,670 units. This is a first-party PlayStation IP, and it's not some obscure IP. Astro Bot has been pre-installed, Astro Bot's Playroom has been pre-installed on every single PlayStation 5 sold around the world. So this is not some new IP or something that, gamers are not aware of. Now the caveat to this is that these are only physical sales, as Famitsu does not include digital numbers. But you have to understand the context with Japan, where it is still very much a physical first video game market. So whatever way you look at it, whichever way you try to spin it, these numbers for Astro Bot are incredibly abysmal. They are shockingly low for a first party PlayStation release. I mean, in comparison, let's look at, say, something like Gravity Rush 2, a criminally underrated game which launched in 2017. That game sold 74,000 units in its launch week in Japan. And if we look at something more recent, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which launched in 2020, sold 14,663 units in its first week. Again, not exactly great, but, still sold more. Sony's first-party software and hardware, to an extent, it's just not selling in Japan. Now moving on to the PS5 Pro, and the response in Japan has been hilarious to say the least. Sony announced the PS5 Pro this week would cost a whopping 119,980 yen in Japan, with no disk drive, no stand, and no new games to showcase why people should part with their hard-earned cash and spend a small fortune to buy this product. On Twitter, one user provided a pretty hilarious comparison of what you could buy instead in Japan for the exact same price as the PS5 Pro. You could buy 3 PlayStation 4 Pros for the price of a PS5 Pro in Japan. Or you could get yourself 4 Nintendo Switches for the same price of a PS5 Pro in Japan. Or you could even get 6 Nintendo Switch Lites for the price of a PS5 Pro in Japan. This is absolutely ridiculous. And the online comments from Japanese gamers pretty much sum up their feelings towards PlayStation in Japan, with one user saying, "In this case, I think it would be better to buy a PC and use Steam. I wonder what the benefits of a PS5 are." Whilst another gamer said, "It feels like a game console for the overseas markets. It feels like Japanese users are being abandoned." Another gamer says, "Pricing is very important. I think there are very few users who will pay more than 100,000 yen for a game console." And my personal favourite, "History repeats itself like the 3DO and other defunct consoles." Now, if you don't know about the 3DO, I implore you to go and look it up. The 3DO was a console so ahead of its time, it priced itself out of the market and teleported into the future. But in all seriousness, we've seen this pattern and shift in Japan throughout the PS5's life cycle, with Sony seemingly abandoning its home market and the second largest video game market in the world, I might add, excluding China, and also bizarrely increasing the price of its flagship console and accessories. The Famitsu charts have at times had the complete top 10 of games sold being on Nintendo consoles with no PlayStation representation. And the Nintendo Switch, even in its 8th year, continues to outsell the new PS5. Is it too late for Sony to salvage its position in the Japanese market? Only time will tell. But the price increases and the lack of compelling first-party games leaves the future of the PlayStation 5 in the second largest video game market in the world pretty uncertain at the moment. So, what are your thoughts on what we've discussed in this video? Do you think Sony has completely priced itself out of the Japanese market? Do you agree that the various price increases for the PS5 have had an effect on the hardware and software sales? Has Sony abandoned its Japanese gamers? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next video.